In a small town in South Wales lies a hill with a dark forgotten secret. At its peak, above an old quarry, along a winding trail into the trees, and through a hidden path deep within the ferns, lies a large body of water known locally as the Pool of Avarice. The pool sits in a large clearing within the trees, and is a mystery itself, as no stream appears to flow into or out of it. Local legend tells of a great house owned by a prominent family that once stood on the site of the pool many years ago. One day, a poor man set out from his home some miles away to visit the house. In short supply of food for his wife and children, he made his journey in the hopes of receiving help from his wealthy relatives at the top of the hill. After a long journey, he finally arrived at the house as the day grew dark. Nervously making his way towards the heavy front door, he could already smell the food that had been cooking. He approached the door and knocked several times before the mistress opened. She was immediately repulsed by the dirty, rugged man who stood before her. He spoke first, identifying himself as a distant cousin, and pleaded with the mistress for help to provide for his family. But the lady of the house rejected his appeal, and he was sent away with nothing. The day was already drawing to a close, and it was far too late for the poor old man to attempt his long journey back home. So he decided to spend the night in the surrounding woods, hoping to try to persuade the mistress first thing in the morning, with time left to travel home. He awoke the next morning after spending a dreary night in the woods with the small amount of sustenance he brought with him. As the sun rose, glistening through the branches of the trees, he picked himself up for another attempt at persuading his affluent relatives. Storm clouds rolled in as he neared the front door. He reached out and knocked firmly, preparing himself for one final confrontation. Eventually the mistress appeared, narrowing her eyes with disdain at his presence again at her door. The needy relative begged and pleaded with the mistress to find it in her heart to provide aid to her unfortunate cousins. But the mistress refused once more, denying their kinship and demanding he leave and not return again or face terrible consequences. He left in despair, setting off on the return to his lowly abode and the hungry family waiting for him. At once the storm hit, and he hurried toward the tree line for shelter. He glanced back at the house with bitterness, and through the howling winds he cursed the house and all those who lived within it. Suddenly the earth shook, and lightning struck the house. There was a sudden, violent movement through the hill. His eyes were transfixed as he watched the ground open up before him. The hillside lifted and crashed over the house as it fell into the depths below, leaving no trace that it was ever there. Eventually, many years later, a pool of water formed in the hollow pit that remained, and many a night since, the local shepherds who have dared approached its edge can hear the cries of the ones lost below, doomed forever by their own vicious greed.